Hi, good afternoon. It's another edition of Rails Minute. I'm Dan Bostrom, Rails Member Engagement Manager, and I'm here with Deirdre Brennan, Rails Executive Director. Again, this is our effort to bring you short weekly videos where you can find out more about what is happening with Rails during shelter in place. And now we are into a new phase. So Deirdre, thanks for joining me. What are you reading these days?
Well, I just finished The Last Trial by Scott Turow, which was fabulous. He's written many books about legal thrillers, I guess, and of course he's local. He writes about Kindle County, and I always try to figure out if it's really Cook County or not. He definitely tries to make you think that that it isn't, although sometimes you can't help but think that it is. But anyway, it was great. I highly recommend it. I really need page turners these days. So that was definitely a page turner.
Yeah, it's nothing like a really engaging book for spending a lot of time at home.
Indeed.
Okay, so last week we had a member update, and a big portion of that event focused on our plan to restart delivery service. Would you mind talking a little bit about that plan?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So yes, we certainly did have a member update. We had more than 700 people sign up, and pretty much all of them actually showed up and then stayed until the bitter end. So the delivery plan, which took up the lion's share of the meeting, yes, we are going to deliver starting on June 18th, and then again on the 25th to pick up and distribute items that have been in our warehouses, our hubs, etc., and in other libraries. And then after that, we will start up a regular schedule that will probably change regularly as well, because libraries are changing their minds about when and if they want delivery. So we did a survey, and all of this information is posted on our website on the COVID page, and I highly recommend that everybody go there to get the details, because there are a lot of them. There will be an FAQ that we'll be putting out, I think, tomorrow, and then we're actually doing a flow chart. It's that complicated. Now that will not be out tomorrow, because we want to be sure we're going to check with some practitioners about it. But by all means, look for the e-news and then look for the flow chart. And for questions, and to decide whether you want to opt in or opt out, or just haven't made up your mind yet, go to the Rails delivery page, which is, I think, Rails delivery, all one word, at railslibraries.info, and you will be able to ask and answer questions.
Yeah, it's such a huge task, and I think I appreciate you providing that email address, because I do think that communication is always the key in these particular situations.
Yeah.
Yep. So okay, great. Well, it sounds like you and everyone else around Rails is very busy. What else is happening? What would you like people to know about?
Well, I mentioned briefly last week, and then at the member update, about the census, that we did get additional funding, which is fantastic. So please, stay tuned for information about that. We will be, I think, having some networking meetings or a event. We did get an extra $350,000, give or take, for fiscal year 21, because the census now scheduled to end on October 31st. So we're looking for ways to reach out to even more libraries. So stay tuned for that as well. I know the pandemic has kind of superseded everything in everybody's minds, but the census is something that, the pandemic eventually will go away, but the census is very important to just life in general, proceeding successfully for everyone.
Yeah, great, thank you. So typically this is the point where we turn to member questions,
Mhm.
but there was so much that came out of that member update that I want to also sort of talk about. One of the other topics that we covered in that member update was non-resident cards and legislation regarding those non-resident cards. Would you mind just talking a little bit more about that?
Happy to, yes. So House Bill 2096 did pass the General Assembly. It's you know, the short title, friendly title is Cards for Kids Act. So you can Google HB 2096. You can go to the General Assembly website, etc. But essentially, what it does is it provides for libraries to give free of charge library cards to students in unincorporated areas, in families that fall below the U.S. Department of Agriculture minimum guidelines. And that is like the short term for that is the school lunch program. So at this point, the state library is beginning the process of writing administrative rules for this, which they do for every law or act that they oversee. If you read the System Act, then you must immediately go and read the administrative rules, for example, because they tell you how to apply it, how to implement it. And the administrative rules will be very helpful in helping libraries figure out, how they're going to implement it in terms of how to know if someone is below the income guidelines. So that's important. I think, the other important thing is that this obviously is very important in this time when, and the reason it was done, I'm sure, is that e-learning and e-everything has become so important that access to libraries is exceedingly important. I know that there are some concerns among libraries out there about it being abused. I personally have no worries about that. I think there are ways that we can ensure that it isn't, that it is, set aside for students. But we'll let it, play out and see, what the rules show. There will be opportunity for libraries to comment on the rules and to, help to, craft them. So everybody should pay attention to that as well.
I love the name Cards for Kids. Some innovative legislator really got on the ball with that particular
Yes,
name. So.
yes. Very hard to vote against Cards for Kids. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
well, that will do it. Thank you so much, Deirdre, for joining me, and we will see you all next week.
All right, thanks, Dan. Bye.
Bye-bye.